Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dill, a monster week one matchup Sunday night. The eyes of the nation are going to be on this football game. You got CJ Carr making his first career start for Notre Dame on the road against the Miami Hurricanes. And Dill, I know everybody wants to talk about Carson Beck at Miami. I think the bigger storyline for a lot of Miami fans that followed this program damn closely is, hey, we got a new defensive coordinator, and we feel like we did enough in the offseason to kind of flip this defense going into 2025, specifically in the back end. Now, is it all going to come together from Miami on defense? We're going to find out in this football game. A lot of really fun matchups to get into. Before we do, and as always, hey, Notre Dame fans, Miami fans, I know it's going to be hot in the comment section. Wouldn't want to have it any other way for this football game. You know, whether you agree with the boys, whether you disagree, whether you're mixing it up with the opposing fan base, we invite it in the comment section. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, I have a feeling we are not going to agree on this football game. I'm going to give you the T-box. I think we got to start CJ Carr, this Notre Dame offense, going up against a new-look Miami Hurricanes defense. How we feeling about this matchup Sunday night?
And what's challenging about Notre Dame now in terms of dealing with their offense is you finally feel like you have more of a threat in the passing attack, especially down the field, because last year teams could kind of squeeze down on Notre Dame. Riley Leonard wasn't necessarily the guy to push the ball down the field, but they also didn't really have the weapons. This year, you have Malachi Fields coming over. I think you have the emergence of Jaden Greathouse and then some young wide receivers that we don't know a ton about. But also you have a guy in CJ Carr who, if nothing else, is very comfortable ripping it down the field, taking more chances. So that's probably the challenge for Miami is they got to deal with not only a really good rushing attack, but now a downfield passing attack that might have a little more juice than we've seen in the past.
If you are a Notre Dame fan, like you are hoping that's what you see, right? Like what kind of held Notre Dame back from winning a national championship is you can probably make the argument that at times this offense was a little bit one-dimensional. Like Riley Leonard only 10% of his throws traveled 20-plus yards down the field. And like you said, let's make the one thing very clear. CJ Carr is a significant upgrade as a thrower of the football than Riley Leonard was last year. They also got the weapons. Dill, what's tough for Miami is can you leave your two safeties high and respect what Notre Dame can do winning down the field, but at the same time stop the run with some light boxes? Because look, as much as we're talking about this Notre Dame passing attack, which we think is going to be a lot better, you still have to deal with the best football player on the field, I think, and that's running back Jeremiah Love.
Do you think the boundary corners, like how comfortable do you think Miami is with having them go challenge these receivers? Because as much as like I think these receivers are much better and they're much more talented, like Miami's kind of got really good boundary corners, I feel like OJ Frederick was the only thing that was working for the most part last year for and he was really good as a young player. And then you also have
Xavier Lucas. Sorry, I didn't mean I'm cutting you off again. I'll say this still. I think you'll see Miami maybe try to gamble. Because if I'm Corey Heatherman and I'm looking at scheming up for this football game, I'm saying I'm not going to let Jeremiah Love bait me. Like, hey, look, if CJ Carr's a redshirt freshman can come on the road and go win that football game through the air, pushing the football down the field, I am prepared to live with that outcome. But like you said, you know, last year Miami probably couldn't play that way because you didn't have cornerbacks on the boundary that you trusted. It sounds like we know OJ Frederick can play. It sounds like they're very happy with Xavier Lucas. And Dill, you got two safeties and Zachariah Poyser and Jacoby Thomas, who I think can come down into the tackle box and support the run. I'll tell you this, though. The most important football player for Miami in this game, I think it's Motori, the transfer running back coming over from Rutgers. Elite run stopper when this kid is healthy. You're going to need all of his run stopping ability in this football game against Notre Dame.
He was a huge spring portal addition because everyone else, all the other linebackers, I'd say in Miami for the most part, are either really young or more spacey athletic linebackers. Yeah. I will say Wesley Bassane, I probably don't do him justice sometimes. When I talk about him. He's probably more complete than I think a lot of people give him credit for. But I do think him and Motor is a really good combo with a bit more of a rangier linebacker and Wesley Bassane, and then more of your classic hammer who can take on blocks and be tough in the run. So I like what Miami has been able to do over the course of the spring portal window, building out a linebacker room that I think is far more equipped to deal with this Notre Dame team.
I will say this. It's really big for Miami to figure out how to stop the run. Because if you are on the field a lot, I'm a little bit concerned about the big bodies you have in the middle of the defensive line. Because I think you only really trust three. Like, you trust David Blake coming over from La Tech, 5-star Justin Scott, who I'm sure Notre Dame fans who are listening to this know Justin Scott, and then you got Ahmad Moten. But Dill, outside of that, like, who else do we trust? And what happens if this defense has to stay on the football field for a really long time? That's how Notre Dame can maybe grind Miami down a little bit.
Especially because they have a deep stable of running backs. They have an offensive line that I think you feel more comfortable right now blocking for the running game than the passing game, maybe. So that is probably going to be, as much as we talk CJ Carr and kind of a new dimension for the offense.
Yeah.
Their bread and butter is still going to be trying to hammer it on this man.
And can I say this real quick? And maybe the Notre Dame fans will disagree, but this is kind of my evaluation. Notre Dame's offensive line was good last year, and I expect it to be good in 2025. When that Notre Dame offensive line was tasked with blocking some of the better edge rushers on their schedule in pass protection, they struggled a little bit. Well, I'm looking at Miami and saying Ruben Bain going to be a first-round NFL draft pick. Akeem Mesidor is one of the more underrated edge rushers that we see in the country. If you can stop the run and force CJ Carr to win this one through the air in the pocket, Dill, this isn't Riley Leonard back there. I'm not saying CJ Carr is a bad athlete, but he's not as good at getting himself out of trouble. Riley Leonard was tremendous at making things happen when the pocket wasn't perfect. Can CJ Carr do that as a redshirt freshman making his first career start? I'm looking at these tackles and saying, can they block up some of the better edge rushers that they're going to see all year on the road in this football game? It's going to be hard to hear the snap count. Miami's going to show up for this football game, at least in the crowd standpoint. That's another storyline. Let's flip it here. A Miami Hurricanes offense versus a Notre Dame defense that is going to be very, very good, especially in the secondary. Dill, if you are Shannon Dawson and you are thinking about how am I going to move the football against Notre Dame, it's got to be hard to see this Miami team winning through the air consistently. Because I look at and say that Notre Dame probably has one of, if not the best secondary that we're going to see in the country. If you're Shannon Dawson, it's going to be a little bit of the opposite from what we saw in 2024. Like in 2024, you had Cam Ward. You had multiple NFL draft picks at wide receiver. We were throwing the ball all around the yard. Going into 2025, where's the engine of this football team? Like, to me, it's the offensive line, and it's a deep stable of running back rooms. Can you consistently run the football against Notre Dame? I feel like that's a monster question, because if you're dropping back and asking these younger, you're not really sure what you have wide receiver. You're going to ask these wide receivers to go separate and win against some elite caliber cornerbacks. That's a matchup that favors Notre Dame all day of the week in this one.
And that's the primary concern, I think, if you're Miami, is like, can we at least challenge them a little bit in the secondary? Can we get open to an extent? Because, again, I imagine Notre Dame's basically going to play kind of a cover one look, have an extra safety in the box, and say, go beat us one-on-one. And that is probably the big concern, is like, can Miami win enough of those battles? Because, again, it certainly favors Notre Dame on paper. Like Leonard Moore, you said it. He might be the best corner in the country. He's awesome. And then Miami, like, do they have that number one? Do they have that guy who can go win his matchup when he gets it? That to me is, because, again, I think Miami is going to be able to run the ball on pretty much everyone they play to an extent, because it's a big physical offensive line. You have running backs who can run hard. You have running backs who can be explosive. Mark Fletcher, probably more of the hard runner. Maybe
Jordan Lyle being the home runner. I got you.
Explosive guy. So it's like, I think Miami is going to be able to do that, but I don't think you can be so one-dimensional in these type of games. So if Miami can find something in the passing attack, I think they give themselves a shot. But that's going to be the question. Can they find anything?
It's going to come down to two things. Like, one, Shannon Dawson, I think, is going to need to – I think he's going to need to help these wide receivers. You know you're going to get a lot of man coverage. Manufacture some man beaters, some shallow crossers, some rub routes. Scheme up to help your wide receivers create some separation on the outside. That's number one. Number two, Dill, these tight ends, specifically Elijah Lofton. Now, it ain't just like, hey, we have Elijah Lofton, we gonna win now, because Notre Dame's got some freaky athletic linebackers who are very good in coverage. They also have a guy by the name of Adon Schuler at safety who is very good at taking away the tight end position. That comes down to, hey, I need my best player to go out and beat one of Notre Dame's best players. One of the best players on the Miami Hurricanes offense, it's a name that not many know right now but will know, is Elijah Lofton. You're going to need him just flat out win, whether it's a linebacker in coverage, whether it's a safety in coverage. I think that is the player that is probably the X factor to Miami in this football game if they want to have success throwing the football. Because
the other answer might be to be able to run. If they can establish the run and get that third linebacker on the field, can you use a Malachi Tony to go after them? Because if Devontae Smith can kind of play the whole game and they can play more of like that nickel package, if you will,
sure.
I think that's going to be tough because Devontae Smith, I just don't see him getting whipped all game, let's say. But that's like if you can get a Jalen Snead on the field or an Osbury, can you get your slot wide receivers? Because Malachi Tony might be the most consistent name you hear out of this Miami wide receiver group. If you can establish the run, get them into a 3 linebacker set, can you get your
slot wide receiver in some
receivers
space?
Working?
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. I feel like it comes down, as much as I said, hey, I'm a little concerned about Miami's depth on the defensive line. Is probably say the same thing for Notre Dame and Dill. They're a little bit smaller too. It's a big physical. There is a chance Miami, all 5 of these offensive linemen get picked in the NFL draft. That's how good I think this unit can be. This just might be like, hey, Mario Cristobal, you recruited for the last 3 to 4 years to have a team like this, to have a bunch of big uglies on the offensive line. You got to go lean on those guys to go out and win a football game like this. That's what it might come down to here. Dill, let's get into the pick here. Here's what has my brain in a pretzel is when I normally am like, it's a 2.5 point spread. Like, it's a toss-up game right now. I trust the coaching staff of Notre Dame more. Like, I think Marcus Freeman showed me he is a winner, and he made it happen a lot of times, ugly at times last year. Mario Cristobal needs to show us that more consistently. But then I look at the quarterback play and say, hey, Carson Beck, as much as people want to drag his name, he's a winner that's won a lot of these kind of football games over the last 2 years, going up against a redshirt freshman who's making his first career start. You trust the quarterback more for Miami. You probably trust the coaching staff more for Notre Dame. I'm going to give you the T-box first. Who you got in this football game?
I got Notre Dame, and I think their matchup on the defensive side of the ball, like their defense versus Miami's offense, I think the lack of confidence maybe I have in Miami's wide receiver core to go beat this secondary in that tight cover one coverage that Notre Dame likes to run. It
feels similar to Georgia, not to cut you off, but that's kind of how Notre Dame beat Georgia.
Like Ohio State had the guys to beat them, and they were beating them like a drum a little bit at times. Yeah. Well, I don't see Miami having Jeremiah Smith and that type of player. Like, and if you don't have that, USC, frankly, was able to kind of take advantage of their matchups at times too. I just don't see Miami having those type of wideouts early in this season. Like, again, maybe some of their young guys can develop into that at some point, but like game one against that secondary. And if you can't be somewhat multidimensional in these type of games, I feel like it's really, really hard to win them. And that's probably my lean. I feel like Notre Dame can be multidimensional more so than they have been in the past. So that's probably my lean.
Yeah, I don't have a lean. I have a pick, and I think I think I'm going with Miami. And it's just because it comes down to the quarterback here. And I know Mario Cristobal has a lot to show us in terms of winning these kind of football games. I'm getting a super senior versus a redshirt freshman. And I'm getting a senior that's played in a lot of these kind of football games. I really do think that matters, especially with this football game being on the road. Give me Miami to get this one done. And I want to be very, very clear. That is not a shot at Notre Dame, because I think, look, if we get this game in December in the college football playoffs, maybe my pick's are a little bit different. But I think because you got a redshirt freshman making his first career start in this kind of football game, give me Carson Beck here. We'll take Miami. You're taking Notre Dame. The boys are split. Let it fly in the comment section. Appreciate you guys. And we're going to talk to y'all later. Peace.